Hello and welcome to this exclusive video tutorial on parallel processing drums for computer music and future music. What we teach at Garnish School of Sound is we process our kick drum and our snare drum separately, and then afterwards maybe process everything else on a separate bus. And in this video we're just going to have a look at processing our kick and processing our snare, get them sounding really nice and fat, ready to mix the rest of the track in. So I'll just give you a quick blast of the track. So you can hear we've got a bit of a balance going on. It needs a mix, it needs a bit of tidying up here and there. So we're going to start with processing the kick drum, which is here on audio 2. First thing you do is send the signal down a bus. I tend to work from the highest bus and work my way backwards. And then for my reverbs and delays, I start at 1 and work my way up. It's just how I work, and I know where everything is then when I go back and retrieve an older mix. So I'm going to start with the kick drum, bus 64. I'm going to send 0 dB. So I'm going to click Alt while I click on the pot, and that will send 0 dB. I want to send it pre as well, because I'm going to have a little tweak of the level later on. You'll see why. When I have a tweak of the level, I don't really want to affect how much I'm sending to bus 64. So it should have made me an aux. It has done aux 6. So I'm just going to pull that down. I'm going to label it. I'm going to call that parallel processed kick. I'm going to stick a compressor on there. It's a Logic compressor. And I'm going to choose VCA circuitry. In the olden days we used DBX 160s, DBX 160X, and they had VCA circuitry inside. They react really well. They're very good for drums, so I tend to have all of my drums on a VCA circuit. Fast attack, pretty fast release. I'm going to take my ratio right up to about 10. So for every 10 decibels that the signal tries to go past the threshold, or the input signal goes past the threshold, the compressor is only going to let 1 decibel pass. Okay, so it's quite a lot. So released pretty fast, no knee. Okay, I mean all the parameters on the compressor is a whole another video which I've actually done on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out. So I want to reduce the gain by about 10 dB, so I'm going to give the track another blast. You can see it's reducing it quite a lot there at 25, so I'm going to take the threshold up. Just going to reduce the input. Okay, so I'm reducing by about 6 to 8 dB, so that will do for now. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to blend it in so you can hear the effect that's having. So already that's fattening up quite nicely. I'm just going to take the level of the original kick down a bit now. Because I'm pulling the level down, I'm not affecting what I'm sending into the compressor, okay, which is very important, which is why I chose pre-fade. I'm just going to tuck it back a little bit more. Going to go back to our kick, bring it in. And already that kick's sounding pretty fat. I'm going to make it sound even fatter. I'm going to pop in after the compressor, which again is important. I'm going to pop in an EQ. I'm going to just choose channel EQ. And I'm just going to turn up everything 100 Hertz and below. So I'm going to turn up 100 Hertz and everything that's below 100 Hertz. For that, I'm going to use a shelf filter, a low shelf filter. So there's my 100 Hertz. It's turning down everything below 100 Hertz as well. So we're going to really bring out the sub there on our parallel process kick channel. So I'm just going to tuck it back a little bit, because that obviously would have turned the volume up in the grand scheme of things. So I'm just going to give the track a blast and just blend it in. I'll just pop open the compressor so you can see. Probably turn it down a little bit. Yeah, you can really hear that now. That's really fattened it up. I might go in and have a little tweak, maybe have a tweak of the ratio and the compressor threshold. But I'm going to move on to the snare. But you can hear that's really fattened up that kick. And here are the kind of ballpark parameters that you want to take into consideration. We've got the ratio of 10. The threshold's reducing the gain by about 6 to 10 dB. Fast attack, no knee, VCA, circuit type, fairly fast release. Then you've got a pretty good starting point. And I like to just give the bottom end a bit of a boost there a lot of the time. All depends again on what kind of kick you got in the first place, but in this case, a bit of extra bottom end on that parallel process channel really did kind of make it sound a lot fatter. I put the EQ in after the compressor because if I had the EQ first, then the compressor would be reacting to the extra low frequency that I put on the kick, and I don't really want that. I want to compress the kick first and then bring out those lows afterwards, just to really, not restrict the EQ in that parallel process channel. Okay. Whereas if I put the EQ first, then the compressor will be reacting to that low frequency boost. So right, we're going to move on to the snare drum because we only have 10 minutes. So we're going to have a look here. We've got this clap and we've got this off snare. So I'm just going to pop them in solo and play the track. Okay, so still needs a little bit of work on the initial EQ, but I'm just going to leave it for now. And I'm going to send the next available bus, which is bus 63. See, I've got that labelled parallel process kick. Very important you keep your auxes labelled, okay? Because when you end up with a massive mix, you've got loads going on and you don't label anything, you know where anything is, and it's just, you can open a whole can of worms just by not labelling things. So we're going to go to the next bus, which is 63. Because I had them both highlighted, they've both selected bus 63. Okay, so if I now hit Alt and 0, it's sent 0 dB to the next available aux, which is put down there for me. So I'm going to turn that down again. I'm going to label parallel process snare. I know it's a clap that happens on the off, but I'm just in the habit of writing snare for everything that kind of happens on, where a snare or a clap happens. You might get in the habit of just writing clap. Okay, so I'm just going to take the solo off. And I'm just going to tidy up that EQ a little bit. He's got this analyzer on there. So I'm going to just turn up the tops a little bit there. Oops. Okay. Just maybe a little bit less. Okay, it's working better for me. It's quite important you get your source sound pretty close to what you want before you apply the parallel processing. And the snare, just have a quick look at this. Quite like that in the mix. Yeah, it sits better for me. Okay, so I'm going to nip over to the aux. It's here. Again, I'm going to start off with a compressor. I'm going to choose VCA circuitry. I'm going to make it fast attack, no knee. And you really use knee with vocals, acoustic guitar, things like that, where you want the compression to be very subtle, where you want the compressor to start to react before the signal hits the threshold, just to give it more of a subtle sort of flavour. What we're going to do is, right, so we've got 10 dB VCA, we're going to give the track a blast. We're going to reduce the gain, maybe not quite so much this time. Because we've got two sounds, so the compressor's going to react slightly differently to each sound, depending on how much we're sending in and obviously the characteristics of the sound. I'm quite happy to have both of them processed like this for now, so we'll just see how we get on. Yeah, Okay, so I'm reducing the gain by about 6 dB. Okay, so that suits me. What I'm going to do now is just blend it in really. So again, it's having the same effect. Same effect as the kick, isn't it? It's kind of making it a bit fatter in there with the mix. So we're going to pop in an EQ, and we're just going to give it a little bit of air at the top end. And again, use a high shelf filter, and we're going to boost everything from 10K upwards by about 6 dB, and see how that sounds. Nice. I would be tempted at this point to put a little bit of ambience on there, but I'm not going to now because that's not what this video is about. What you can do now is we've got our parallel processed kick and snare processed differently with different compressor and EQ. What I'm going to do now is select the kick and the snare, and I'm just going to send them off another bus. Bus 62 is the next one available, and that's made me aux 8, and I'm going to name that just parallel processing. Yeah, PP, that'll do. And I know that that's the kick and the snare, so I'm just going to play. So now I've got my kick and my parallel process kick and my snare all on one fader now, so I can just pop both in and out. So that's sitting pretty nice. I'm going to just turn the snare up a little bit. Just going to have a look at what the kick compressor's doing. Slightly overcooking it, so I'm just going to take that back a little bit. So you can see the benefits of having the different compressor settings on the kick and the snare. You can be flexible. You can change the settings for each element, which I think is quite important. And if you did want to have your process signal on one fader, you can just bus the two parallel processed faders to the one fader, and then control the whole thing, mute it, and you can even maybe put in an extra EQ, or you can put in a posh EQ or something like that over the both of them. So that's why we like to process our kick and snares differently, rather than just sending. Some people even just send a whole lot, all of their drums into one aux and put in a compressor and then an EQ afterwards, just affecting the whole lot. But then your hands are tied, aren't they? You can't nip in and adjust the compressor settings for, you know, what's happening with the kick drum or even with the snare drum. So in the next video, I'm going to have a look at the rest of the percussion and see what we can do with that. I hope you enjoyed listening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks.